This is the newest addition to my one tile per episode series, and I can tell you it is sometimes not that easy to imagine how you want to continue the city when you're only allowed to build in one tile. I'm Imperatur, just a chill guy who loves playing city building games, and you're watching me building a stadium district with amazing public transit and high-rises above a highway in the classic Imperator speed build style. The build time was roughly 6.5 hours with 4 crashes. Before we can build the arena and the surrounding stadium district, we first have to demolish the old infrastructure and replace it with the new one. In the industry and harbor episode, I started separating the cargo rails from the passenger train tracks, so we have a train line that runs right through the tile. This will serve passenger trains, and we'll build a station for that first. I'll use the normal vanilla station without any upgrades. In and around it, we'll use the new parking garages, but also a few typical American surface parking lots. We'll also build the whole area one level higher than the highway. This will later run in a kind of trench. This way we can easily connect the train station with the future arena area so that you can travel to the games by train and only have a short walk to the arena. It's still above a highway, but maybe we'll cover it later a bit more with some grass when we have the mods for that, so you won't even notice that we have a highway running beneath here. Here we have extended the cargo rail tracks at the same angle as the port, so that we can easily extend the next tile at the same angle where the port is located. That is the difficult part of what I meant in the intro. You have to think in the bigger picture and outside the ongoing tile to get a cohesive city layout. But with a bit of imagination it's definitely possible, and so far I think I've managed to connect all the tiles seamlessly. Here on the screen under the train station there will be an industrial area later on. I think this is a pretty good location for that. It's close to the harbor, separated from the residential and commercial areas by the railroad, and it's always important to have enough industry in the city for the gameplay anyway. Right now the job to population metric is perfect, and we have an unemployment rate of roughly 3%, which is almost perfect. So important for me is the look of the city, but also the gameplay effect. The idea here was that getting to the arena by car is also relatively easy. Coming from the left will be the big city, so it's relatively easy to drive out here at the exit and park in one of the parking garages. Then you can easily walk over the pedestrian bridges to the arena. If you want to drive back out in the same direction, you first have to take this one-way street, but then you can turn left later and drive back in the other direction via an exit on the other side of the highway. I've definitely thought about stuff like this, and I think you'll be able to see later that it all makes sense. These areas with small irregularly shaped building plots are always difficult to fill in. Here, right next to the train station, I've built a taller commercial building, but the rest will be more industrial characterized. I've also put a few low-rise office buildings and a large supermarket here. I definitely plan to place these large supermarkets, which we got with the UK pack, more often in the city, because that definitely provides a realistic look. The rest are industrial warehouses. I noticed that there are two types of industrial industrial buildings in the game, manufacturing buildings and warehouses, and the warehouses are all empty in my city, so I don't quite know what I can do about this. Maybe someone has some tips or can explain to me how the goods chain works so that things are also stored in the warehouses or employees work there. Now it's time to build the industrial area before we get to the main part of the episode, the stadium district. To do this, I looked for warehouses and find it, and there we can simply place the extension buildings from the harbor, for example, everywhere we like. These aren't functional, of course, but it's definitely better for the industrial area's overall look if you have large buildings with large footprints here. Also, if you're playing with mods, one of the best tips for realistic industrial areas is, of course, to push several small buildings together so that they form a larger factory building at the end of the day, which is exactly what I'm going to do here. So we have a few large buildings and not a lot of small ones, which just doesn't look good. That's one of the biggest shortcomings of the game, that the industry just looks terrible. Because garbage is always an issue, I'm also going to place one of the new Japanese garbage processing buildings. Later, I decorate the whole area with different surfaces and decals. It's also quite important to place truck trailer props because they make a big difference that the area doesn't feel so empty and much more alive. First of all, we had to level the ground a bit because such an arena definitely needs a large flat area. Then we used the server farm as a foundation. I didn't come up with that myself. Instead, it's heavily inspired by Canadian Moose Plays. So, a big shout out to him for the idea I would have never imagined myself. He took the server farm building and just repurposed it as an arena, and I have to be honest, that's absolutely brilliant. You will find the link to his video in the video description. I'm also going to add a few things to make it look even more like an arena, but I'll tell you more about that later. First of all, we also had to make a concrete edge at the highway. For this, we used the wide pedestrian streets and also built a pedestrian bridge from the train station over the highway to the arena. I used this cable-stayed pedestrian bridge in between the other wide bridges, so the whole construction just looks a bit cooler. What actually makes the building fit extremely well at this point are the different angles of the server farm and how Overcharged Egg would say, if it fits, it sits. Then I took a few small commercial buildings to beautify the arena a bit and enlarge the footprint a bit more, so that it just looks more like a basketball or ice hockey stadium. There will also be a huge curved entrance area, and these little buildings are perfect for that because of the many doors and the glass front. Also, concerts can be played inside, and it's just a multi-purpose arena like every major city needs. Why does it have exactly this location? I don't know, to be honest. I was just inspired by Canadian Moose Play's video to build a stadium too. For the roof, we will also use pedestrian bridges, which we will then manipulate a bit with Move It, so that we get that round curvature that is typical for such buildings. I think that's an extra cool touch that makes the whole thing a bit more unique. Here I wasn't quite sure what color the arena should be. Actually, it makes sense to color the buildings a bit according to the team color, but since we don't have a team playing in here yet, I ended up keeping it in a shade of gray, although I'm going to color it red here in the video. If you have any ideas for cool team names for a basketball or ice hockey team, please let me know in the comments. I'll then create a district where you can see the name, so keep your ideas and comments coming, because I'm always a bit uncreative when it comes to that. You can also come up with a complete list of team names, of course. For the baseball stadium, we still need a team as well. The whole region is called Fort Francia Bay, which one of my friends and biggest supporters over on Patreon, Bare Necessities, came up with, and I think the name fits the region really well. So maybe something based on that wouldn't be too bad. Here I have created the highway exit on the other side of the highway, and next to it there will be more parking garages, and I think this is a much better solution than paving everything around the stadium with surface parking lots as it is typical in the USA or Canada. Now this is one of my favorite parts of this episode. I used these large UK flats and placed them above the highway. These are normal buildings, so they are not the static buildings I like to use, and by accident I found out that these flats in particular don't have a grey base underneath them. This means that if you move them across the street with Move It, there's just an empty space underneath them, but they function completely normal like other buildings and have road access via this pedestrian street. I think it looks super cool, and we can imagine that this area was simply densified and apart from the highway underneath, which you hopefully won't hear. It's actually a really cool place to live because you have public transit nearby but also small park spaces, and the supermarket is not far away either. It will also be relatively close to the city as we are slowly progressing more and more towards downtown, so the buildings are getting higher and more dense with each tile. I'm also going to use the most versatile of all the props under the flats, namely the horizontal pillars. These will then form a nice concrete basement where I'll add a few planters and bushes so that it doesn't look too grey, but in general these will be social housing rather than high-end luxury buildings, as we are still above a busy highway. We are now also decorating the immediate surroundings of the arena. Many people will now be thinking, what the hell is he doing there, because we have a surface parking lot right next to the metro station? Yes, I can imagine that this is simply a remnant from times gone by when this area was not yet gentrified and densified and was surrounded by large areas of surface parking. Also, it's not too unrealistic because there are so many brownfields and parking lots around public transit stops in America, which just surprises and shocks me a little, even in the middle of New York. But if you say, hey, you have to remove that, just build more new blocks here, then of course I can do that too if you want, but the rest is an open space where you can walk around everywhere. I'll cover the whole thing with this brick surface, which is one of my favorite surfaces to make places look nicer. We also have small parks with trees and bushes around here. I can imagine that the arena is a bit older and that it was all surrounded by surface parking back then, but that it's gradually been made nicer so that it's a space that people like to spend time in, and that the arena isn't just a functional building where the games take place, but a nice and beautiful destination. In the rest of the episode, we simply fill in all the gaps with new high-rise developments, for which I use these EU high-rise apartments here. They're not functional though, as I'm sinking them quite a bit into the ground because otherwise they'd be far too high for my liking. In general, all the high-rises are way too high for the scale of the game, in my opinion. But anyway, I like the modern design and I think it fits in quite well here. Maybe I'll add a few smaller buildings inside so that they are a bit more functional. But I haven't done that yet. In addition, the buildings from the Urban Promenades Content Creator Pack are very suitable for creating modern mid-rise buildings, and I think they fit perfectly in this area. The rest will simply be a mix of smaller 2 to 4 story, residential, mixed use, but also commercial buildings, which I think fit quite well with this neighborhood, which is a bit older in itself but has now been gradually renewed. Very cool that you stuck around to the end. I'm definitely really pleased with how everything turned out. Here we can see the before and after, and I think the whole build looks quite nice. What do you think? Maybe I inspired you to build a custom arena for your city too. Who knows? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, you can give the video a like. If you want to support me further, you can visit my Patreon site. There you will find the save game for every episode, and with this addition, the city has definitely become one amazing addition richer. You are very welcome to explore everything yourself, down to the last detail, but don't forget to download all the mods I use. The mod list is also available there. I would like to thank all the people who have already supported me on Patreon so much, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day. See you for the next episode when we'll continue with the next tile until we fill the complete map, so don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. Ciao ciao for now.